This is the CitizenLink Report.
If you find our insights helpful, would you support our video efforts? Your gift of $25 or more goes a long ways. Covers the crew, lights, cameras, all that. Just click on donate. Thanks from all of us. When people with pro-family values are informed about the issues and registered to vote, boy, do they ever turn out. We have some encouraging insights for you. This is the CitizenLink Report. I'm Stuart Shepard, along with Carrie Gordon Earll, who watches over our analyst team. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Stuart.
Let's talk about the voter registration project.
Well, Focus on the Family embarked on a voter registration project last year that has turned out to be pretty historical. Now, a truism in elections is it's all about the math. Whichever candidate, whichever ballot issue gets the most votes, that's who wins. And that's why voter registration is so important. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 29% of citizens were not registered to vote in 2008. That means about 60 million people didn't vote.
Wow.
Now, of that, more than a third of eligible voting citizens didn't vote in the 2008 presidential election. That's a lot of people that are staying home. And we were curious to know how many of those folks that were not registered were aligned or connected in some way with pro-family, pro-life groups like Focus on the Family. So we teamed up with some of our friends, and we looked at our lists and identified people through Secretary of State sites to find out who was not registered, and we got a hold of them, and it was very interesting.
And we were a little surprised at how many were not registered, to be honest.
We were, and you know, I think what happens is people may sign up for Focus on the Family or CitizenLink in our emails or watch the webcast, and they get good information, but it doesn't necessarily connect to, am I registered to vote? Am I an informed voter? Am I an active voter? So we were interested to get as many of these folks registered as possible.
And we had some big goals in mind.
We did. Now, we had 5 partners we worked with. We want to give them credit because they worked really hard on this. American Principles Project, Americans United for Life, Family Research Council, Susan B. Anthony List Education Fund, and National Right to Life Education Fund. So that's a mix of social conservative groups that have been involved. And this really was the largest collaborative effort of voter registration in the modern pro-family history. So we were real excited.
Let's talk about those goals, though. We set some large goals, and it was not clear if we were going to hit them.
Well, that's the deal with goals, as you don't know. You hope that it's going to go well. We had hoped that 1 in 5 of the folks that we contacted would register, and it turned out that happened. Our goal was to reach 5 million unregistered pro-family Americans. That was our goal, to do that, to get 35% of those registered, and to have 70% of those folks go vote. So we had some lofty goals and worked hard to try to achieve those.
And there were some bumps along the way, as you would expect with a project of this magnitude, but the outcome was incredibly encouraging.
It really was. If you can imagine a mailing with 5 million pieces, that's the largest one I think that we've ever attempted here. Yeah. But the outcome was very heartening. What we found was, out of the 5 million that we mailed to,
which is to say we did reach our goal of contacting 5 million.
We did. There are 5 million folks that got a mailing from this collaborative effort.
And out of that,
1.5 million registered that were not registered. So that's 32% of the folks that we contacted, and then that hit our 1 in 5 goal roughly there. Now, what's really interesting is, out of those folks that registered, more than 71%, over 1 million people voted who would not have voted. That's a lot.
Let's put that percentage into context. How does that compare to the typical turnout in a state across the country, or other races that we looked at?
Well, every state will have a different average, a different place where it compares to the national average. But what we found was, in key states where we reached out to folks, said, hey, you're not registered, do you want to register? They said, yeah, I do. They registered with the Secretary of State. Then we were able to go back and confirm they voted. In key states, those folks voted almost 10% higher than the national average in their state. So what that tells us is the people were motivated, it just needed to move to the next level.
So let's summarize that. We contacted 5 million people. Out of that, about a third, 32%, actually registered to vote, and out of that, well over 1 million actually went to the polls at a greater rate than the regular population.
Not all of that million, but part of that million did. And again, it gets into state numbers. But what we saw is when people have access, when you make it easy for them, and hey, we're all busy, you make it easy for me, I'm more likely to do something too. That when they were notified that you're not registered, we can help you get registered, then they were very motivated to vote. So that's highly encouraging.
And particularly motivated by the social issues that we talk about on this program all the time.
Yes, because these are folks that are already connected to those 6 partners, including Focus on the Family. So we know they're people that get our emails or get our literature, go to our website, watch our webcasts, and we just want to make sure our own faithful are registered. So through the Focus on the Family voter registration 2012 campaign, we were able to register 1.5 million voters, and more than 1 million of those that would not have voted otherwise did show up. So I think that's a really good model for where we can go in the future.
Now, an experience like this is something to go through. What have we learned from it that we can apply toward the future?
Well, we've learned it's a big effort, and I think we would do some back-end things differently this next time. But what we learned is that people do want to be engaged. The whole purpose of living in a country where we, the people, have a vote and have a voice is to have people engaged. And through the years, I know it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to say my vote doesn't matter. But we've seen too many cases, Stuart, where a race has been decided by a couple thousand, or at a local level, even a couple hundred votes. So your vote does matter. Even so, it is really our responsibility as citizens and as believers in this country to be salt and light and to be engaged. So what this has done is really encouraged us to continue to carry that mantle and have that message of encouraging people to be engaged in the process, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've already said we're going to do this again in the future.
We are. We are looking at 2014. 2013 is not an election year, but we're looking at what we could piggyback on for 2014, and we'll come back and share that with folks here on the CitizenLink Report.
All right, very good. Carrie, thank you for those insights. That's encouraging.
Thank you, Stuart.
All right, and thank you for watching. We hope you were heartened by that as well. We always love hearing from you. You may write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. Remember to pray for people around the country who are not registered to vote, who share our values on the social issues. Pray that they would have that moment of realization that they need to get registered, that they need to fill out the little card so that they can vote in the upcoming elections as we look down the road. And remember, stand tall and be heard.